Well, hello, everybody in HVAC world. Hope everybody had a great week. So glad to have Mike back with us again today. Mike, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me, bro. I
Uh,
love the show, man.
man, I love learning stuff. Today's been a crazy week, but we're just gonna hop right into it. We're gonna first ask our first pop quiz question, and the first question is, what is the biggest compressor killer? Number one, what is the biggest compressor killer? We'll give you guys some time to put your answers in there. And while we're going through that, Mike, you just really recently had a compressor change out yesterday, right?
Oh, dude. I was like, the man upstairs was knew I was on a compressor show, and then I had the first compressor die. Because I said on the last show, I was like, I haven't had any, man. Dude, that thing just, it sounded right off the start, dude. Like 2 seconds. Just marbles.
Clack, 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 clack.
Yep.
It's a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful sound you want to hear.
Yeah.
Wonderful sound you want to hear.
And let me
All
tell
right.
you, I did got it down to 500 microns. I didn't do the 250 that you were talking about, but I had a nasty thunderstorm coming. You know how it is in the field.
Oh, yeah. So when I first
yeah.
moved to Florida, there was a storm coming and everybody just runs off the roof. Like they left everything open. They were out of there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not afraid of rain. Let me tell you, Florida thunderstorms are different. That lightning goes boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, like straight down. It is no joke. So from then on, I'm like, yep, you see clouds, close it up, get out of there as quick as possible because
Yeah.
it is a little different than the rest of the world.
Yeah. This one was different. It was a condo, 3-story condo, so I was like in like this enclosed like atrium almost. It was pretty neat. But
Nice.
yeah, I was low on acetylene. I had my buddy go to the supply house, and he forgot the acetylene there, so I was stuck there for another 20 minutes. Then my
Oh,
buddy
man.
JR came by, dropped me off a tank, and I sweat those solder joints in real quick. And dude, to do all that right stuff and for it to just die right in the first 2 seconds, man,
How aggravating.
dude, unreal.
All right, let's see that first question. We have question number one was, what was the biggest compressor killer? And I can't see all the chat
Oh
very
yeah,
well there, Mike.
we got
So did we get the correct answer in there?
yeah, we got overcharged, undercharged, bad. Well, he's got 3 in there, Joey. We got a tank says moisture. What do we got? Who else we got in here? So he's saying moisture. Then he said the evaporator coil is frozen solid, but the suction line to the compressor isn't frozen at all. Why is that?
We'll cover
That was
that
a
here in
question.
just a minute. That's a great question. So, Mike, what do you remember? Do you remember what the number one compressor killer is?
Number one compressor killer. Geez, I think I said it yesterday. It was I was thinking overcharge.
Compressor
say?
overheat.
Overheat.
Compressor
Yeah.
overheat. Yep. So that's going to
Overheat.
be caused from your low suction pressure, high suction superheat, high suction line temperature, but ultimately it means high compression ratio. Your compression ratio is too high. The difference between your low side and your high side is too far apart. The compressor is doing too much work and it gets hot. And biggest cause of that, you're looking at things like low in refrigerant charge. You got type of refrigerant restriction. Anything in those lines that cause you to have a high compression ratio, and that discharge line temperature wasn't one of the questions, but that discharge line temperature should always be below. Anybody remember what should that discharge line temperature be below? 6 inches
Come on,
from the
guys.
compressor.
Throw it in the
should
chat.
never exceed. Drum roll. All right, and there is a delay on YouTube, so we have to give a little bit of time for. Yes,
there it
of
is.
course,
There we
of
go.
course, Jason Johnson has it right. 225, below 225 to stay
Yep.
alive. 6 inches from the compressor. It's absolutely correct.
Yeah,
And
Joey
with,
Duffy got it too.
With R32, good job, Joey. With R32, they're going to actually have a little bit higher temperature, and they're having to use a different oil because of that. Little fun fact there.
Oh yeah,
All right,
we're looking at like over 220, just a little over 225.
Yep, so they're using a completely different oil to be able to handle that extra heat. So it's pretty interesting.
Is
All
it
right,
going to be not as? Oh, sorry, man.
Nope. We'll do question number 2, and then we'll talk about it while we're waiting. Question number 2, pop quiz. Question number 2: what components can be added to prevent flooded starts and broken scroll sets? What components can be added to prevent flooded starts and broken scroll sets. We'll let you guys put in your questions there. Now, what were you going to say, Mike, before I cut you off? Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
I was wondering if the new oil is going to be what was it? The POE absorbs moisture. It's what's the word I'm looking
Hygroscopic.
for? Hygroscopic.
Hygroscopic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it going to be the same thing or?
Yep, still going to be hygroscopic. Also,
Yay.
some of the other oil they have is a PVE oil, polyovinyl oil, and it also absorbs moisture at a higher rate, but it doesn't turn to an acid nearly as easy. So
that's cool. I'll
some
take
of the
that.
ductless units, yeah, I'm all like, sweet.
Yeah.
So some of the ductless units are using that. I don't know what the big brands are going to be using yet. They're still kind of keeping some of that secret. So as soon as we find out, I'll let you know. And also, yeah, Jason had a really great point. Make sure you keep your suction line temperature below 65 degrees entering that suction temperature coming in.
Yep. That's big. That was Jim Bergman was saying that on Measure Quick. You got to keep that compressor cool.
Yes, and let's see. Did anybody get the answer correct?
What do we got? We got somebody said crankcase heater. Jason Johnson.
Yes.
Solenoid valve, and then
that's exactly right. Crankcase heater and a solenoid valve. So the crankcase heater is going to keep this crankcase warm, so we prevent refrigerant from migrating to the compressor oil in the first place. And then also we can use a solenoid valve that closes so that we prevent that refrigerant from migrating to that evaporator coil. And we talked about needing it even in Florida. And last time we made a scenario to where in the wintertime, even though it can be warmer in the house than outside. But another scenario in Florida is, what if your unit's in the attic and that unit cycles off? What's that temperature in the attic? Is it going to be warmer in the attic or warmer outside? And we got to think.
In the summer and winter?
Summer, summertime.
In the summer, we're like
it's going to be warmer in the attic.
140.
So once that evaporator coil starts heating up, that refrigerant will migrate over to the crankcase. So people don't think about refrigerant migration outside in the summer, but if you got an attic unit, absolutely. It'll get hot in that evaporator coil when it cycles off.
So migration's always from a high to a low.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So hot attic, 85 degrees, 90 outside, migrates down. Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
I actually heard that one time. I heard it like gurgling. I think it was a piston unit, but that's cool stuff, man.
That's right. And we had a question, and one of the answers to the question, and I love it when people answer. So I'm not discouraging anybody from answering, but I do want to clarify. If you're adding a hard start kit, you definitely need to add a crankcase heater to it, because that start kit gives more starting torque to the compressor. And let me switch over to the other screen here.
Yeah, that's right. You were saying it kind of like spins it so much, it pops it right up that oil chute. I give it my own words,
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
The oil chute.
Do this one. Oops. Well, I don't know how I did that last time. Let's try this button. Nope. This button.
Yeah, so that hard start, if you got one on, definitely throw crankcase heater.
Yes, because that hard start is going to give this more starting torque. And if you have a flooded start, this will stall on a regular single phase or split phase unit. This will stall out, and it tries to push that liquid back out the way it came. But once you put a hard start on there, it increases that starting torque, and it's more likely to cause a broken scroll set. And if you notice that all three phases, which three-phase naturally has a massive amount of starting torque, so three-phase compressors almost always have these crankcase heaters, just because they have so much starting torque, they have to prevent that flooded start. So adding a start kit can actually make flooded starts worse in some scenarios for a scroll, specifically for a scroll, if that makes sense. Not discouraging anybody.
And you said there's a check valve, right at the bubble by the. I'm pointing on the screen like you could see me. Yeah. Unbelievable, Mike. Yeah, right there, right.
right there. We got a little check valve right there, and some of the new ones. Some of the I think all the ones I have here are pretty old.
So when you dump through the liquid line after you pull a vacuum, you're fine, right?
If you dump into the liquid line, and you got to make sure that you don't have a hard shut-off TXV or a solenoid valve, so that it can come all the way back around. Yes, if you dump into the liquid line, it cannot come back into the compressor side. That's right. All right. So good. Traps are great to make sure we get oil return. Polyvinyl ether. Yes, that's exactly it. All right. Let's look at the next question we have. Question number 3. Drum roll. What 3 internal components work together to allow the scroll to start unloaded, even with a hard shutoff TXV or a solenoid valve? What 3 internal components work together of the compressor? Internal components work together to allow the scroll to start unloaded, even with a hard shutoff TXV. We
Even
talked
when,
about this last week. See if anybody remembers that.
and that's a non-bleed TXV. Is that
Yep. So some
correct?
of the TXVs will stay open and they allow it to equalize the pressure, and then there's also some hard shutoff TXVs that will close completely, and it works kind of like a solenoid valve, and it helps prevent refrigerant migration. So we call them a hard
Okay.
stop or a hard shutoff TXV. And nowadays we're using a lot more EEVs, electronic expansion valves, and the whole idea behind that is it forces that valve closed to do that same thing, so that we prevent that refrigerant migration.
I like them, man. A lot of guys are
Yes.
scared of them, but I like them.
I'm a big fan, but you have to do things right. You have to flow nitrogen while you're brazing. You have to have everything on point.
That's
And
probably why
also,
I like them.
Jason mentioned velocity is very important for Ultron. That's exactly right. Velocity is so important. Suction line size, making sure we got the right airflow across the evaporator coil. All right, I'm not seeing an answer yet. Mike, do you know? Can you
I got
remember?
Jason. Jason's got floating seal, and then he also put
One.
velocity is very important.
So we got
Yep.
floating sails 1. And if we remember from last week, this is our floating seal right here. And what that floating seal does is allows, without it, this lifts up and down. So the floating seal keeps this top plate pressed down all the way. So the floating seal is 1. We got two more things that work together. And we just said one of them.
Throw it in the comments, guys. Don't be shy.
So the one that we had already
I
said
tell you, that looks like
was
my old hockey puck for roller hockey.
right here. We have a check valve in the top of that muffler plate. So here we have a check valve right here. So this check valve closes. So we hold high pressure on one side. We have the floating seal that allows the scroll set to separate. And then we have one more little thing in there. And the last thing that we have is right inside of here. See if I can get the camera on it with the lighting. Everything's backwards. Oops. When you don't mirror, everything gets crazy.
You got it. You got it.
Oops.
Pitch and yaw. Pitch and yaw.
Yeah. Oh, I
Oh,
lost
the
my
hand!
hand.
Grab my good hand.
Okay, right there. The hand is almost pointing at it. There's a little bit
nice.
of oil there. So you see a little hole there, and that hole has a name to it. Anybody remember what that name is? And I've lost my flashlight. And that name is a bleed port.
Bleed port.
Yep, so we'll put our light in there. Yeah, there's just a little bitty hole right there.
So I can flow nitrogen through there.
Well, you can't, because remember there's that check valve.
Gotcha.
So that check valve at the head is going to prevent any flowing through the compressor.
So just from the suction line through only one way. Yeah.
Yep. So
Come
to prevent
HVAC guy.
So we end up with
not creepy.
The 3 things we have is our we have our check valve, top of the scroll set. We have our floating seal and our bleed port. All right. It's like all, and remember, this isn't for a grade, so you guys aren't gonna you don't have to worry about failing. It's okay to throw an answer out and be wrong. It's fine. I'm wrong all the time.
Yeah, nobody has rulers over here slapping hands.
All right, question number, oh, here we go. I skipped one. What is the root cause of copper plating in a scroll compressor? Actually, any compressor. What is the root cause of copper plating in a compressor?
Yeah, we talked about this last time.
Yes. So copper plating is a huge issue. Copper plating adds metal to all of these moving parts right here and all of the bearings, all the surfaces. So when we make that metal thicker, it adds more resistance, makes it harder and harder for these to turn. It prevents oil from getting up in there. And that's where you're going to actually need a start kit, is to overcome all that extra resistance. But what causes that copper plating? And Mike, do we have an answer in the comments?
We don't, not on my end, unless everybody watched the other live stream and they don't want to feel like
They
they're
don't want
cheating everybody.
to. So do you remember what it is?
Oh, we got Joey Duffy says
Yes,
moisture,
Joey. Yes, Jason
acid.
Johnston. Yes,
Good
moisture.
job, man.
Moisture gets in the system, especially with PE oil, turns it to an acid. Acid starts eating away at the
That's right.
copper. That copper starts floating around in the system, and it plates in the hot part. So moisture, and that
Yeah.
moisture can be from an improper vacuum. We don't pull a deep enough vacuum, and it can also be from contamination when we use those long hoses and we bleed through the manifold. If we're not bleeding that manifold exactly right, or that yellow hose, or even purging the hoses, we can actually introduce moisture in the systems just from bleeding across the manifold set. So absolutely correct. Moisture. Boom. All right. Let's see what our next question is.
Which we had plenty of today. A lot of moisture.
We had about 40% here. It's 100 degrees, 40% humidity.
Where you at again, Ty? I'm
San
sorry.
Angelo, Texas.
Texas, okay.
Yep.
Wow, 40%, man.
So question number 5. Ooh. What component is added to overcome the effects of copper plating? So if we have a compressor that has copper plating, I can add this component to get it started, to keep it running. What component can we add to keep this compressor running if we have copper plating?
You guys got it. I know your group is smart, man. They got it.
I got a great group of people that come in here. It's absolutely awesome.
There's just a lot of people out there with big thumbs, and they're deleting.
Oh gosh, I can't type fast enough. Like I'm and then I'm bad at spelling anyways. And then spell check's like, I can't help you. I don't know what you're trying to say. I have no clue what you're trying to say.
Neil Vid said hard start.
Yes. That is a great use for a hard start. We have copper plating built up on there. It's harder for that compressor to start. So by adding a hard start kit, we can add more starting torque to get that compressor running. But we also need to be thinking, what's that root cause? So ideally, we want to solve the acid issue. So we can do an acid cleanup procedure. We can get rid of the acid that's there to prevent any new copper plating from happening. And that way we can get even more life out of that compressor. But that's going to be an option for the customer. But we do want to think, hey, I don't just want to throw a start kit on there. I want to think, hey, what is the reason for it? And so, yes, it's absolutely the correct answer.
Yeah, the compressor I was working on had a suction line dryer on it. So I cut that out, and it was a 2-ton, a little unit. And I went ahead and put a 5-ton filter dryer on there. I heard Brian Orr talking about that a long time ago. I was like, all right. Yeah, it has a little bit more capacity,
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. What about fluorescent dyes in existing line sets? I'm not a big fan of dyes. I do say that for those that use it, make sure you label it, because I don't want to put my nice set of gauges or my nice set of probes on it with the dye system. And I definitely want to, have something ready, because it just gets everywhere. I don't like it. And there's only one dye that's actually recommended, or that's allowed by Copeland, and Spectronics. You can look up the Copeland Bulletin AE9011 and it will tell you, but not a big fan of dyes. It's that's a whole controversial thing. Like there's some cases, I think, that which it could be. But the problem is people just don't want to look for the leak, and then they just keep adding dye in, and then they add dye in. And that when we did the compressor teardowns, some of it looked like antifreeze. It had so much dye in there. It was absolutely insane. All right, so our next question, we have question number 7. What percent of Copeland compressors are returned under warranty with no fault found? Specifically, Copeland scroll compressors, the ones that came with new units, when they're returned under warranty, what percentage of them could they find no fault with them whatsoever?
When you said it, I was so blown away. I forgot what the number is.
Oh, and Jason is right. If you do have a large dryer, you have to add for that charge.
Add for the charge. Yeah.
Especially if
Yep.
you use those big giant canisters, though that's a significant amount of liquid
Yeah.
that takes up in there. So,
Yeah.
yep.
We're getting a bunch
Uh,
of people
I have to
saying
agree with Joey. I hate dye.
40%.
Yes, 40% of the compressors
Perla.
returned under warranty
Yep.
is
Joey,
40%.
Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. All right, now the next question. What percent of Copeland scroll compressors are returned under warranty that actually have a manufacturer? I won't use the word defect. I'll use non-compliance or non-conformance. So they said that the compressor didn't meet the expectations. So what percentage of those compressors didn't meet the expectations? Have you
Ooh,
seen a correct answer?
they're quick now. They're
Oh, yeah,
throwing.
they're getting awake. We're getting
see
people
'em?
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see them. There's a light right there.
We got HVAC residential says 2%. Jason says
Yes.
2%. Perla says 2%.
Absolutely right. 2%. So of all the compressors in warranty, 2% of those are true. Like there's an issue, they weren't made up to the standards they should have been. So that means 40% have nothing wrong with them. 2% was legitimate warranty issues, and then the rest are something external to that compressor, something else external.
Yeah. With
And
the
let's talk about a
3%
few of
margin
those.
for error. Yeah,
That
right.
kind of leads me to the next question. If we have bad airflow, right, there's bad airflow across the evaporator coil, so we know that's going to flood the evaporator coil. So bad airflow leads to this problem with a scroll, specifically with the scroll, we end up with this problem: bad airflow.
And you mean bad airflow super high, super low?
Bad airflow is in not enough airflow, which is the problem most of the time. I've been doing some tech support work, volunteer work here recently, which can be aggravating, but it's like airflow is so incredibly, like most of the problems are airflow, like one after another, and people always say the same thing: the airflow is good. And I'm like,
good.
well, good's not a number, so.
And I love the tone too, and it's like always it's absolute.
Confident.
Oh, it's good.
Confident. It's
short.
Good.
It's good.
It's definitely good. Why would it not be good?
Yeah.
So yeah,
got the handometer up and everything. I
right.
checked every vent.
We had one that the guy had a I think it was a 12-inch duct on a 4-ton unit on the return, and it's like, well, no, it's fine. I'm like, no, that's like enough for not even a 2-ton unit. Like it's like it's bad. You got a problem.
It's unreal.
Like,
unreal.
All right, the answer.
We're getting slugs.
Slugs. Okay, so that's what we think, but specifically with the scroll, it's not exactly a slug. So
we got Jason saying floodback. Flooding.
Floodback is
Freon Leon's in the comments. Floodback.
Floodback is what's happening, but there's something even a little bit more. It is absolutely floodback is absolutely correct answer. But
and then HVAC residential says foaming and removing oil.
Okay, so what's happening is if we get liquid refrigerant coming in, there's actually a diverter plate that diverts some of that liquid down. And the scroll, if we get liquid in here, will actually be able to try to separate. It's called compliance, and allow some of that to slip through. The big issue is most of that liquid is going to be heavier, and it's going to fall down to the very, very bottom down here. And then if we have the oil pickup at the very bottom, it's going to pick up that liquid refrigerant. And as it picks up that liquid refrigerant instead of the oil, it's going to pump the liquid refrigerant to the top. And over here, where we have all of these moving parts up at the top, where all this stuff's moving and needs to be lubricated, we have liquid refrigerant instead of oil. And the bearing farthest away is going to have wear. We're going to wear that bearing out because we're washed. And the key is washing the oil away with liquid refrigerant. So liquid floodback is absolutely the correct answer, but specifically with the scroll, which will be like if you have a reciprocating, it'll kill the compressor, bust the valves, like it's immediate damage. But with a scroll, it will not damage this part of it. It gets into the oil, raises the oil level. Usually the bottom bearing's still okay, drives that liquid refrigerant up to the top. And then now we have all these moving parts with no liquid refrigerant, or with liquid refrigerant instead of oil. So that's specifically a little bit of a trick question there, but hopefully we want to get everybody thinking. And this is what I like about doing the review side of it, because like it makes sense when you hear it, but then you hear it again, you're having to think about it. So that's the point of it. Not to try to get on anybody or make anybody feel bad. It's just getting us thinking, right? And I know we're all tired after a long day of work. I get that.
It was a long one today, man.
For me too.
It was hot.
Suction line. The suction lines are oversized, and it can cause a compressor to have what issue? So the suction line is too big of a suction line,
So let's
and
say
it
you
will
got a
cause this
2-ton
issue.
and you got 7/8 on the suction.
There we go. Great example. Yep. So the unit called for 3/4, and we got 7/8 instead. So it will
You know,
actually cause an
I
issue.
remember seeing a lot taken out like early 2000s. Train was big on 1.125" for 5 tons. And then the new line that came out in the last 10, 15 years, 7/8. So they always kept that 1.125. And then I remember seeing like somebody downsizing from like a 5 to a 4. I was like, whoa, man, this is a big jump. That's big copper, man, for residential.
And that's why it was so important to follow those specific manuals, because some of them would specify they wanted this size. And actually,
Yeah.
if you notice, a lot of those bigger sizes was more likely to be done with R22. And when you had 410A,
Oh,
they a lot
yeah.
of times
Okay.
didn't want as big of a size because they wanted to keep that oil return. And so, yes, the answer is,
Oh,
and
you,
I think
you slipped up.
I messed up. Jason Johnson, I believe, had it first. Am I correct? Did anybody else
Did he?
beat
Did
me
he?
to it?
Let me go through.
I see
Sorry, man.
Joey Duffy also said bad oil return.
Yep. Yep.
Neil C. Vids, low oil return.
Yep.
Chilled guy, oil
Oil
fallout. Yes,
fallout.
all of those are
Yeah.
absolutely correct.
I'll take
So
that
what
one.
happens at that larger velocity, that larger size, we slow the flow down. So ever think of if you've been in a city when it's windy and you walk between two buildings, like the wind speeds up because all that volume is going through a smaller space. So it speeds up faster. And then if you go to the open area, it slows down. There's more room to move. So as we use a larger pipe, the refrigerant can slow down. And as it slows down, the oil starts falling out of it. And what happens when you run a compressor without having any oil return? The bottom bearing is going to go bad. The top bearing, everything's going to be going bad. So it's definitely going to be an issue.
Yeah, maybe a
Absolutely going to be an
Bernoulli
issue.
effect in there. You never know. Especially if you don't remount that copper.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. And that's why the oil traps are so important. So what the oil actually does, since the oil fills up that spot, as the refrigerant's going through, it's a smaller area. So it actually speeds up the velocity in that area, and that picks that oil up and carries it that next distance. So, and as the oil falls out, it goes to that next trap. And if you do have traps, you got to make sure that you fill those traps before you start that system up, because, and it can also cause an issue with pulling a good vacuum. But if we have a bunch of traps, it's going to take all the oil out of the compressor to fill the traps, and then you won't have any oil back to your compressor. So,
Oh, wow.
like, yeah, oil traps can be good, but you do got to make sure you have the right amount of refrigerant in them. And then the last question of our review, question number 10. When replacing a compressor, it's ideal to cut the top to see what happens inside. But at a minimum, you should do at least this one step. So you're changing out a compressor. At minimum, at least do this. We know that a lot of people can't cut it open, and if it's under warranty, you can't cut it open. But at a minimum, you can do this one step if you got a compressor that's failed. Yes, double suction risers are very big, especially on the commercial side. And especially if you have a multi-stage unit, you can have a double riser.
Joey's saying measure the oil.
Yes, Joey, right on. Absolutely.
Joey's
Measure
got the coffee
the
tonight. I'm
oil.
telling you, man.
And so now we measure the oil. And I even have a cup here somewhere, we can actually measure how much oil we have. And my wife recently got new pots and pans, and I kept all the old ones because they're great to use a big pan. You can just dump the oil into it and it holds it anyways. But then you can pour it into like an old measuring cup. And then the next question is, how do we know how much oil that we have? Well, if we go to the Copeland mobile app, and I don't get sponsored by them, but if you go to the Copeland mobile app, you can scan the compressor. You can find out how much oil that compressor is supposed to have in it. So now you know how much oil is in the compressor. Copeland mobile app, how much oil is supposed to be in the compressor. And then we can see, hey, we don't have enough oil in this compressor. Where did the oil go? And it's usually in the suction line or the evaporator coil. You get into supermarket refrigeration, there's lots of other places it can be. Now, we had some other really, really awesome answers, such as acid test. We got Freon Leon acid test. I think we had some other ones there. Acid test, poured out and weigh it. Yes.
Yep.
Chilled guy acid. And yes, I think measuring the oil is incredibly important, but also acid test. We want to know,
Yeah.
do we have acid in that system? Because if we have acid in that system, we need to do an acid cleanup. And since that was the last question, let's roll right in to acid cleanup. So
Nice.
we get acid in the system, right? We don't want acid in the system. It's not the 60s. We don't want acid. We got to get
Yeah.
rid of that. So how in the world, what do you think the best way is to get rid of the acid in the system?
It's a good question. It's a
It is a good
damn
question.
good question.
I know it's a
Hey,
good
what's
question
up, Dave? How's it going?
Dave, that guy is so awesome. He is so cool.
He's a trip.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, starting off doing, there was a lot of things that people said in the trade. I was like, for acid and stuff like that. And then there are some companies that make those little tabs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here we go.
What do we got? What do you answer what we're seeing, and I'm going to look up the form I'm looking for.
Yeah, nobody's come in there yet. All right. I didn't want to give it away.
All right. What do we got? Anything
We
popping
got
up?
Jason saying phase 3 acid test kit.
Yes, I do love that. My favorite one was the one from Refrigeration Technologies, and they've discontinued it. So my
really?
second favorite now is the 3-phase acid test kit, and I have like a bunch of them. I can't walk off camera and get them right now, but yes, I have a bunch of them. They're
Leon saying suction line dryer.
Good. So
yeah,
and that is the correct. There's a Copeland bulletin, and I used to have this number memorized, but there's a Copeland bulletin for acid cleanup, and it tells you step by step. How's it going, Aaron? Yes.
Yep.
So there's step by steps what you want to do with it. But essentially, if you have acid in the system, you can try to blow as much of it out with nitrogen as you can, but you want to use a filter dryer system. Filter dry suction line and liquid line dryers, and they make dryers that are for more for moisture, and they make dryers that are more for acid. And if we have an acid cleanup, we want to get the dryer specifically for acid cleanup. There's molecular sieve, and then the other one was activated alumina or something like that.
Yeah,
I can't remember off the top of my head which one is which, but one is specifically for acid cleanup. So if we measure acid in that oil, then absolutely we want to do an acid cleanup, and that's going to be a suction line dryer and a liquid line dryer, oversized, and we want to start cleaning up. Now the next question is
good comment. Dave said pipe wiper. I mean, you could do that. Get a lot of the oil.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's on my
good
to-do
idea,
list.
Man.
I'm going to be getting one of those eventually, but yes, I'm a big fan of those. I do like those.
The pipe wiper.
The pipe wiper. Then we also have the other brands.
There's another brand out there. That's right.
They kind of did a little improvement on it.
The
Versatech, yes, because that guy that does it, whoop, and it makes that noise when it comes out.
Which is, it was just a good shot in the wind because the Versatech owns 80% of the market now.
Oh, do they? Well, they are everywhere now, it seems like. Woo. So yes, oversized dryers, oversized liquid line dryer, and oversized suction line dryer. Now, how long should you leave that in there for? How long should it be?
That's a good question, man.
So that suction line dryer needs to be in there no more than 72 hours. It is not a permanent
hours.
Yes, there's the AE bulletin.
AE
24-1105.
1105 R6.
So yes, that's what you want to follow. 72 hours. Jason Johnson, of course, he knows that. But yes, you want to leave it in there temporarily. And here's the reason. Because as it's picking up all of that acid, it starts causing a restriction. And on the suction side, it's very easy to make a restriction. And for every 1 psi of pressure drop, we have a 2% capacity loss. So if that suction line dryer, it's going to have a pressure drop anyways, just because it's a dryer. So you already have a pressure drop. And now let's say you have a 5 psi pressure drop across there. 5 times 2 is 10. That's a 10% capacity loss.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure, and then you're changing, of course, your velocity on the other side. You have an oil, everything's being affected by it. So they don't just want you to come back in 72 hours and take it out. They want you to measure the pressure drop across there. And if your pressure drop is big in that 72 hours, they want you to replace it with another one.
Nice.
And then come back again. So yes, acid cleanup can be very expensive. Now there's a catch. Here's what I do. I use ball valves. Now I prefer my dryers to be inside,
Oh,
but
you beat me to it.
if I have acid cleanup, I'm going to put my dryers outside. And what I'm going to do is, if it's residential, I'm going to have your valves on your equipment, right? We can open
Yeah.
and close those just like normal. And then I'm going to put my ball valves on the suction and liquid line past
Yeah.
it.
You only
Now I
need
got
one.
valves here and I got valves here. What am I putting between those valves?
Schraders.
I'm putting in my suction line and liquid line dryers. So now when I have a pressure drop, I valve off those units. I can recover that last little bit that's
Yeah.
in there. I can put in my new dryers. I can pull a vacuum in just that little bitty section, which is super easy to do.
So much
Super easy to
easier.
do a decay test. Open the valves back up. I'm back up and running again. And then if
Yeah.
I got to come back to take that suction line out, there's no pressure drop. Then I do the same thing. I valve it off. I take it out. I do the same thing, put it back in production.
And they're
good
not
to go.
that expensive as people think, you know?
So I do need to make a clarification on those valves. They will leak if you open and close them a lot. So like supermarket refrigeration are notorious for leaking. But if you're just talking about opening and closing them up just a few times just while you're doing this acid cleanup, you're not going to have an issue with it. So yes, the valves do cost money. But when you think about how much time you're saving of having that valve and all the work you're doing, you can simply isolate it right there super fast. And I have a friend of mine, what he does is something a little different. He puts in a bypass valve around it. And all he does is he comes back and then he just opens that bypass valve to bypass the suction line filter dryer. Now, I'm not as big of a fan of that. I agree that it works and it's better than nothing. The problem is that when that unit shuts off and you have a back pressure situation, is it going to put that contaminants back out in the line? And number two, obviously it will not work for a heat pump, right? You have a heat pump, you're sending out hot gas, it will disintegrate that suction line dryer. But if I got a suction line dryer and it's a heat pump and I do that valve system and it's only working in the summertime, I valve it off, isolate it, take it out. So before winter comes, like it's just a straight piece of pipe there. So it won't matter.
Yeah. And then Sportland has suction line dryer that has like a carbon in it, doesn't? Do they? Or am I thinking that?
So they have some really awesome
cool stuff, right?
With the bolts that it can take out. Here's one thing a lot of people don't know is those commercial ones, even those are supposed to be taken out. You take those cores out and then you put in, it's like a screen that goes in there in its place. So I
read that manual like 15 times. I could not find how long I could leave that big Sportland one in there.
Right. So I was thinking like it's so big, like you can leave it for a while, but no, they still said they want that pulled out and then you just put the screen in its place because it removes the pressure drop.
I did see the screen and I'm like, give me time.
Yeah. And that screen, you can put that over your phone. That way you can screen your calls.
Well, I got to make a phone call. I'll be right back. I got to tell my buddy we got to schedule this call. Take that suction dryer out. Yeah, we're working on like a 10-ton unit. And, you know, I usually do residential. So he called me in on there. And I'm like, dude, I read the manual like 15 times. I don't know, man.
And yes, United Refrigeration does sell. I can see some of the comments. I can't see all of them. They do sell those ball valves. There's about like 6 different brands out there. I don't have a favorite brand, but I don't do a lot of the big commercial stuff anymore. So, you know, if I was doing a supermarket, I would probably have a brand that I favored over another. But yes.
Yeah. Freon Leon. So, yeah, the HH. I think that's the one.
Yes.
Yeah,
there you go. That's right.
Yeah.
HH. Yes.
Man, these guys are on the ball.
Oh, they are. They're freaking brilliantly smart. So the next thing is, this is where marketing. Now, if you read every AE bulletin from every compression manufacturer, they talk about dryers is how you fix acid situation.
Dryers.
But what if I was a marketing company and I just wanted to make money selling some products? What if I just sold you, and I actually had one, and I don't know what I did with it, but I just had this little substance, and you just poured this substance inside and it just made it disappear. It just made the acid disappear. How does that sound? Does that sound good?
That sounds awesome. I'll buy that. It's like
absolutely. It's like poopy gone.
I don't have to pick up my dog's poop.
Disappears. It's acid be gone. You just add it in and just be gone.
It be gone.
So a lot of people buy these and they put it in the system and they're like, oh yeah, I got acid. I'm gonna put this in here. So
it's
now
like
we're gonna
Tums,
talk.
right?
It's like Tums, right? Oh, and the answers are already popping up. Oh my gosh, I love this.
Acid scavenger.
We got to think of a little bit of chemistry, right? HVAC is physics and chemistry, like it is, and mechanics. So if we think about an acid, how you have to neutralize an acid is you add a base. And a base is just as destructive as an acid. Like most of our coil cleaners we use, they're like, it's non-acid. Yeah, because they're a base and it will literally peel your skin off of your fingers. Like it is extremely
Super alkaline,
powerful.
right?
So if you're going to neutralize acid, first you have to have the correct amount of base for the acid. And you're like, hey, it's just this much for a 5-ton system. What if I got a little bit of acid or if I got a whole lot of acid? Oh no, this much for a 5-ton system. Yeah, but what if it has this much acid? Oh, just put this much. What if it's got a whole lot of acid? Oh, same thing. Same.
Yeah, no
right.
problem.
So if we put too much base in there, the base is going to do more destruction to the system than the acid does. The base will cause more damage than the acid. All right, so let's just assume, we'll make some assumptions here because assumptions always work well. Let's put the correct amount of base with the correct amount of acid, right? Perfect chemistry. We got the perfect amount of base with the perfect amount of acid. That's a chemical reaction. And the answer's already been said. When we neutralize an acid with a base, it's a chemical reaction that creates salt water.
Salts in water. Somebody said H2O salt.
Yes, salt water. So what do you think salt water does inside of a refrigeration system? We got all salt and water. That sounds like a great combination, doesn't it?
That's crazy.
So yeah, the salt, the water is going to turn back into
Jason
acid.
Johnson. It was like there.
Of course, he's brilliant. I love this man.
I can't find a ketchup in the refrigerator.
So you're going to end up with salt and water. Well, the water's going to turn back into an acid again, and the salt is going to cause all kinds of problems with that system. So I went to 2 different manufacturers that sell this product, 2 different ones, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to be nice, right? So they will talk to me and not trying to be rude and all. And so I started asking them, some questions, and they're, decent people. But when you start asking them the questions, well, chemistry says that you end up with salt and water, right? I'm like, well, yes, but the filter dryer picks it up. That was the answer from 2 different, very large companies that make these products.
The filter dryer gets
catch
your salt
the moisture
out.
and the acid. Well, guess what proper acid cleanup is? Filter dryers.
Yeah.
So if we're going to rely on the filter dryers in the first place, why are we using another chemical, hoping that we have the right amount of balance, hoping that we do all this, and then end up with salt water, and then we're going to have the filter dryer collect the salt water?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is that freaking insane? Why don't we just skip all of the ridiculousness and go straight to the dryers?
Skip that little beaker and throw that right out.
So yeah, I get my little soapbox there because I used to not know that. And you know what makes me mad? I want to go back and kick myself in the butt because I've used those products before.
That's what I was talking about earlier. I didn't want to say it.
I have a video somewhere saying like, oh, I use this. And I'm like, no, Ty, you got to learn. So now I'm like telling everybody else because I learned. I'm like, I found this out. I had to tell everybody. So yes, that's why it's marketing. Right? Buy this product and it's expensive.
Every burnout, every short to ground, you got to get that acid scavenger. Come on now. Don't be a hack.
And I try not to say exact names, but yeah. So that's the issue with putting things in. It just magically make things clean. And yes, rust. It will cause rust too. You need some oxygen for that also to happen. But if you're just dumping acid scavenger in there, you're probably not pulling a good vacuum either. So you end up with some oxygen, and then you end up with more. Yeah, it's just like a
little bit of oxygen and the salt. You get corrosion. It's wild, man.
Yes. And I see this in the commercial side too. Like people, they just sell this stuff. What about using line set flush versus the pipe wiper? So I'm a big fan of the pipe wiper and also the other one, the line set cleaner. The you're pushing a pig through there. Line set cleaner is a little different story, and I'm not matter of fact about it like I am about the additives. So if you're putting a line set cleaner in, and then you put the pig through, good, you're getting it all out. Now, the line set cleaner has been recommended by several manufacturers not to use. One of those being Copeland, one of those being Ream. They actually have a bulletin about it. And the reason is because if you don't get all of that cleaner out, it's worse than the contaminated oil that's still there. So if it gets mixed with the oil, it can be very difficult to get out. So if you got like a trap or a low spot, there's oil in there, and that solvent gets up in there, you're relying on a vacuum to get it back out. And if if you're able to get a good deep vacuum, you're getting below 500 microns, it's holding below 500 microns, most likely you're getting all of that solvent out. Most likely, right?
Okay.
So I'm not
So that
worried about it.
R11 will kind of evaporate because it's almost like an alcohol or something.
Right.
Okay.
Most likely, yep. So
Okay.
if you're doing that deep vacuums, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
But they found if that stays in that system
Not
and it
good.
doesn't come out, it's
Yeah.
worse than the contamination. And mixing PE oil and
Yeah.
mineral oil isn't that bad. Like mixing those two oils isn't that bad because it's only a small amount of mineral oil in there. So they found
Right.
it's not an issue. But leaving the flush in there is an issue. Causes a huge problems. We
What's
still
up,
have
Gilberto?
R11 chillers. Oh, I love R11. Of course, not for the environmental side, but R11's an incredible. Like it's a great cleaner. And if
Dude.
you know, you know.
Dude, I got it through my gloves. I was like, whoa. I was like, this stuff's strong, man.
Oil and refrigerant. Oh yeah, it's and you know General Motors fought that for a long time too because they used it as a cleaner. And the first ones when they were trying to do away with that, they got a little loophole that let them keep using it for a cleaner because it was so effective. It was the best one.
All right, I got a little bit left on that one job. Take the gum off of my shoes.
120 microns. Yeah, if you're getting to 120 microns and you're holding there, because here's the other thing, you can hit 120 microns and still be bad. You can pull a vacuum down quick. You can hit 120 microns, like, yeah, I'm good. But if you're doing 120 after decay test, now you're good. Because I've seen people hit 120 and it bounced right back up to, like 1,000.
Yeah, it goes
2,000.
right to 1,000 real quick.
So that moisture, it takes some time to evaporate, especially if it's down here in the oil. It takes time to pull that out. So you have to take time. So yeah, if you're doing a decay test and you're down that low and you're holding, then yeah, like some of the manufacturers actually want you to hold below 250. And so it's serious. Yeah, the lower you are, then the more likely you are to get it out. Now, we're doing more and more heat pumps, more and more cold climate heat pumps. So on those systems, you're going to be pulling a vacuum in the wintertime. Well, it's going to be at that point. Now you have to worry about ice. Like in the summer, there's too much heat transfer. You don't have to worry about it. But in the wintertime, we could worry about that moisture freezing. So to speed a vacuum up anywhere, add heat. We can add a crankcase heater. We can heat this oil up. We can speed up our vacuum. But if it's going to be in a winter scenario, then you may have to put a tent over that outdoor unit. Heat that outdoor unit up, heat the evaporator coil up, use a heat gun in the line sets so that you can pull that moisture out of there. And you can do that anytime, speeding up a vacuum, adding heat. But in the wintertime, we're going to have to do some of those scenarios.
Hey, kick it to me real, Ty. The inverter system I put in was like 24 hours. They wanted me to give it 240. Yes. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I went to a class just 2 weeks ago, and they wanted it to hold. It was at I think it was 600 psi of nitrogen for 24 hours, and then they wanted it to hold in a vacuum, in that vacuum for I forgot how many, like several hours, like holding in there. So it was like leaving it for 24 hours under 600, maybe it was even more. It was a lot of pressure though, leaving it in there and then leaving that vacuum for a long time to make sure it stayed. And I was like, that's a lot, but really, is it a lot?
I don't know,
because they're more susceptible to moisture. You have more moving parts, so I think it is important. And I think really we just get hung up on the habits that we were taught. Like, I remember a guy literally told me, and I did it for a week until I learned better. It's like, hey, all you got to do is listen for the vacuum pump sound to change. You don't need that because I have the original micron gauge.
Two smokes.
Two smokes. That's it.
Two smokes.
And so I was like, no, that's wrong. But I have the original micron gauge. It has a dial on it. It's analog.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dude.
It's not new.
You're like Eric. You get them like nostalgic meters.
Yeah.
He keeps
it goes with the gray and the beard.
Yeah. Yeah. But it said to keep the 220 plugged in for like a wild amount of hours. I guess to keep the compressor up to temp.
Yeah, we want to keep this warm.
Yeah. Because I was reading the manual.
Oh, yes! See, that's why I love you, man. Read the manual.
Did I do it 100%? Not really, but I'm trying to do better.
Total Tech left a comment. I can't read it. So
which one, Jason or Total Tech? Which one?
Total Tech first. We'll do Jason.
Fun fact: the small calibration bottle included with the 110 p.m. leak detector contains R11. Wow, I didn't
Oh,
know
I didn't
that.
know that. That's
Wow.
interesting. I still
And then
have my
Jason
very
says
first.
low pressure chillers manufacturer suggests a 48-hour decay test. Wow.
Wow, look at that. That's impressive, right?
Shoosh.
So we talk about we didn't used to have to do that. Well, I have some books from back in the 60s that were talking about microns and the issue with
Yeah.
moisture in the system. So it's not a new thing. We could just get away with a lot of stuff because mineral oil was forgiving. Like it was like, it's fine, it's fine. Now I got
Yeah.
POE oil is like, no, I give nothing.
Yeah. There's just no forgiveness with the POE, man.
Well, POE was like a friend of mine. Like, right, as a great guy, works hard working, provides for his family, nice guy, helps you out when you need it. Like, he's a great guy. The problem is, if the guy gets just a little bit of meth, then he starts destroying everything around him and turns everything into a problem, and everything is a disaster. And
Ah,
that's POE oil. It's like
that's
it's a
POE.
great oil. Just keep the moisture out of it.
He's a
If you
good
give it
guy.
moisture, it's going to start tearing up everything.
He's a good friend of mine. But you take him out drinking, he destroys the whole house.
That's exactly right.
Oh, that's too funny. I like that one. I'm gonna sling that to everybody I know now.
So in some of the teardown classes, they've actually found where that those additives have actually coated the scroll sets. Like when they tear them down, they found issues with it. There was one story of where Copeland, they had these lawyers come in. They had 3 compressors already changed, and they came in with all their lawyers and everything in there. And they were like, "Hey, we're going to sue you from all the money that we lost." And they had the compressor straight from them. They put it into the teardown lab, and like we can't record it. The teardown lab is amazing. So they start cutting it apart. When they cut it open, water comes out of that system.
No way.
Water comes out. And the lawyers, this is from what I've heard, I wasn't there, right? So they said that they just packed up their suitcases and they just walked right out. So
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing how much stuff just comes external to those
That's
compressors.
crazy, man.
Yeah.
When I was a rookie, I worked at an undisclosed location, and they were telling us to sell this weird little vial of like it had Schrader pins on both sides, and it was an oil additive. I called it snake oil, but I forgot what the heck it was. I forgot the name, but it was like an oil additive. It'll reduce your RPM, the friction on the compressor. It will reduce your amperage by yada yada yada. You ever hear of this before?
Yes. I'm going to
What
talk
was
about
that?
it and then note Aaron G's comments. We're
Oh
going to come
yeah,
back to
he
his
says
comment.
I've always.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
I'll get distracted.
sorry. Man.
So what you're talking about the additives? No, it's my issue because I have there's several brands of it, but the whole idea of it is it uses a type of polymer and it coats the metal. So the idea is that it's coating the copper inside of the evaporator coil so that the oil doesn't stick to the side. And the idea is that it since you don't have oil, that it prevents or it allows better heat transfer because the oil's not there. Now, there's 2 points of that. One is they've done studies on that. And even if you had a high percentage of increased heat transfer through the oil, because oil has such a little bit of resistance for heat transfer, like it never pays for itself cost-wise or benefit.
Right.
And a lot of the ones that they saw no benefit whatsoever. Like there's study after study after study done on it.
Right.
The other thing is now you're also coating other things with this. So now you're like, what is it coating that it's not supposed to be coating?
Thank you, Jamie.
What else are we coating that needs to have a layer of oil? Because all these moving parts should be coated with a microscopic level of oil. So if we put polymers on there that are not allowing it to be coating, what's happening in the compressor? And then there's one of them that was used during the whole big TXV sticking issue, which was from a major compressor manufacturer. And you know who you are, and I won't say it.
I think, did Jason say it? Can you see it?
I can't see it, but
I
there
don't want to
was
say it.
there was when they manufactured these, they would sit for a little bit. So they put this an oil additive that prevented rust. And so they would add it in. They had 3 that they used. Well, somebody thought, why are we using 3? Let's just pick one. So they picked one, probably the cheapest one. They picked one, but that one that they picked reacted with POE oil and it would turn to a sludge. and it would clog up TXVs. So the TXVs, that pin couldn't open and close correctly. So there was a class action lawsuit across multiple manufacturers because of that. They're having to change out these TXVs because of the oil in the compressor. Now, another manufacturer that starts with a T that's very well known, to eliminate having to have all the cost of changing out TXVs, they said, hey, use this oil additive. And it had a type of like a little bit of an acid in it that would, or it had something in it that supposedly cleaned up that gum that's inside of there.
Kind of broke it down a little bit.
Jamie, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So it allowed that pin to move better, and that was actually listed in the class action lawsuit against that company that starts with a T, that they used this additive instead of actually fixing the problem. So it's actually listed in there. So evidently, like, I've heard people say that additive helped it, and I've heard other people say it didn't do anything with it. So
really?
I'm not going to say like to use an additive, but I will tell you to look at Copeland AE Bulletin 93-11, and it tells you what additives are approved, and you will see that is none. None of them are approved. None of them. None of them are approved.
It's a short memo, huh? And if I remember clearly, it was a rust inhibitor they put in there that reacted, right?
Exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go back up and find his comments.
It was the product. The product was it had new in it.
One of them. There's another one that had a sup in it too.
There was another one. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, my keyboard is not working. Here we go. Let's see.
MJX oil.
Oh, now I can see that. I've always wondered, maybe there's no stupid questions. What does nitrogen pick up any contaminants before pulling the vacuum? Like, is there a benefit other than verifying it's tight? Okay, this. All right, I saw this. I was excited about it. I had to finish the other one before I could go here because I already forgot what this question was. So, nitrogen. There is a really, really, really great article written by the supermarket refrigeration genius, Jeremy Smith. And it talks about the misconceptions of nitrogen. So when I pull a vacuum, I want to purge, before I pull a vacuum, I purge nitrogen to try to push out any of that moisture that's in there before I pull a vacuum. So I'm pushing that's out. What people think that nitrogen, they think that nitrogen is like absorbing moisture, like it's just picking it up, and it doesn't do that. It can help push it out, but it will not just go along and just pick it. It'd be nice. It'd be cool.
Wouldn't it be awesome, dude? If you just
send in the Marines. I mean, the nitrogen is just going to go pick up all the other stuff and clean it, but it doesn't work that way. But what it can do is push out a lot of that excess in there. Now, you've probably heard of triple. Everybody's heard of triple vac, right? You got people like, I always triple vac. Here's the catch.
Oh, I thought you meant a product. I was like, I haven't heard of that.
Oh no, triple evacuation is it's a method. Like people are like either like they are for it or they're just like, eh. So
I remember in my when I was in what do you call it? The trade school. Yeah.
So if you have dry nitrogen, it won't hurt anything. But what we buy isn't really dry nitrogen. What we buy is just a low grade of nitrogen. And people leave the bottles open, leave them empty. So sometimes you can take a nitrogen bottle, turn it upside down, open the valve, and you'll have like liquid H2O come out of it.
Yeah, dude, don't say that to me.
Yep.
That destroys my week.
What we use is
I thought that was
nitrogen.
A fluke on Facebook, man.
No, it happens. It literally happens. So there's no high quality standards, and they make a tool that you can hook to it to test what the moisture content is in it. But like, it's super expensive. I can't afford that. So you can spend the money on buying really like medical grade dry nitrogen.
Right.
It's super expensive. So if you're using true dry nitrogen and you're using a triple vac, yeah, it's not going to hurt anything. I don't know. I guess on a cold day, it'll speed it up because if you're like in the winter pulling a vacuum, I could see how it could make a difference. But typically the nitrogen that we use is so low quality, you're literally introducing more moisture into that system.
Is it that bad? Wow.
There are some, yeah. So
I've seen a couple of Facebook posts where the guy opens that nitro tank and it's just sputtering. And dude, my heart, like, I was like, oh, Because I'm
right?
always flowing nitrogen and like, oh, I could
No,
be
we
doing
should still flow
worse.
nitrogen because flowing nitrogen still prevents oxidation. Even if it has moisture
True.
content, it's still preventing
Right.
It's still
And
preventing
none of the
oxidation.
oxid. Yeah.
We're still pushing moisture out of the system. I do want to
True.
check before I hook my hose up to make sure it's not sputtering. And to
I
get
know,
the
right?
actual liquid, you got to turn it upside down. So, like, under all of these circumstances, it's still way good. But if you're
Okay.
using it in triple evacuation, you've already dehydrated it down to a point, and now
Yeah.
you're introducing
So
the
triple
moisture in there.
vac would
So,
be
triple
actually
vac, if you're using triple
horrible.
vac, you better go get some medical grade true dry nitrogen.
So
So
it
yeah,
would be
so
better to get that empty jug of 410 off the truck that has just a little bit of gas and just this diminismus. What do you call it?
I can't hear you.
I didn't say it.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're cutting out. You're cutting out. I don't know.
I said there's a recovery tank on the other side, on the suction side. That's what I meant to say. So you.
Aaron
that's
that
right.
was a great question, Aaron, and it was a great point because a lot of people don't know. And don't take my word for it. Go look up any of these things I'm talking about. The HVAC school has some great articles about, and it's Jeremy Smith, and he wrote a thing, and he goes into the science about it. So
sorry, Ty, I forgot you work for ESCO.
Sometimes I forget too. I love the people at ESCO are just really amazing, awesome people.
They're awesome.
But we work together with so many other people, like with HVAC school, with ACCA, with like they work together all the time. And I'm sure in the business side, there's probably other stuff. I don't care. That's not my job.
Dude, what A2Ls was like a whisper like 2 years ago. Jason was at, how do you say his name? Objute?
I can't say his last name, but I call him Jason Awesomeness. And he was on the Refrigerant Transition Council, and he stays up every day. He checks the public register of any of the changes in our industry. So I found that he is the person to talk to about anything refrigerant related. And then my boss, Howard Weiss, he reads like all of these bills and documents and stuff that I can't. Like I've tried to read. I can find like Control S or Control F and find the things I'm looking for, but he can read that, comprehend it, and then rewrite it to where it makes sense to me. But I can't read those things. It's like I'm not there.
Speaking about people that help you do better, you keep on talking about this Copeland app. I'm downloading it now.
Copeland. Oh, and if you're going to get the Copeland mobile app, you might as well get the Copeland AE Bulletin app too. Copeland mobile app's a must. Get the HVAC school app. If we're going to be talking about apps,
yeah, dude.
HVAC school app. It has tools. It has how-to. It has the podcast. Has everything in there. It's my favorite app. The Copeland mobile app, and also the Copeland AE Bulletins app. People ask me all the time, like when I worked for them, people say, "Hey, what does Copeland say about X, Y, and Z?" Well, when I worked for Copeland, I was just like, I was a nobody, right? I was just a little guy running around talking about stuff. So it was so hard for me to get to talk to engineers. So anytime I got to talk to an engineer, I was super happy. But I would just simply look stuff up on the AE Bulletins app, and it had exactly the official statement from Copeland, which most of the time matched up. But yeah, the Copeland.
I got to register. I'll do this later.
So if you have this one, you can search for stuff. You can search for about compressors. You can search for any of the stuff about acid cleanup. It's all right there.
Yeah. I was in the middle of a job, and I remember reaching out to you, and I was like, it was like a recovery tank question. I was like, and you shot me the screenshot of the HVAC school app. I was like, man, I got that. What?
And so that's why I like showing the sources of where I got it from. I don't want to be like, oh, Ty's smart. I'm not.
Yeah.
I just know how to find answers. And I keep hearing the same stuff over and over. Eventually it finally sticks, even to me. So I like to show people where I get it from so I can empower more people to go solve more problems. This is a great question.
Awesome app, dude. I use the capacitor app on HVAC school like all the time now.
Helium is awesome. And they also use helium as for leak checking on certain pieces of equipment. But
really?
Helium, fun fact, is actually the refrigerant with the lowest boiling point. Really? Helium has the lowest boiling point, and they use it. Guess what they use helium for? Guess. Just make a guess. We'll let the audience guess. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
I mean, it's great. It's great for your voice.
Point of helium?
it makes the kids laugh, you know. So I mean,
Helium is minus 452.1 degrees Fahrenheit
minus
or minus
400.
668.9 degrees
Minus now
Celsius.
the lowest we can go is minus 460, but helium boils at minus 452. So helium is
Wow,
like the refrigerant at the lowest boiling point. Let's see.
holy
I'm gonna scroll down.
smokes,
Let's see if anybody got the right answer.
that's
Where do we use
wild.
helium as a refrigerant? That's so cool. LinkedIn user that you mentioned helium. Jason Johnson, I turned that tank upside down because I want to know what's in it.
Oh yeah, there's a LinkedIn user.
Man,
Okay, yep.
there's some great, man. You guys are awesome.
Yeah,
Look
you
at
got
all of
some
these.
really cool fans, buddy.
So I bought a helium tank because I have an old window unit, and so I bought a helium tank, and I wanted to see if there's enough helium in there, like what it would do if I charged a window unit with helium. So that's like, so I bought a helium tank, and I'm like all this stuff, and my wife, I love my wife, she's amazing, but she's like, she loves balloons, like helium balloons, and so she's been using my helium tank. Anytime there's any kind of a party for anything, she's filling it up with balloons. I'm like, you know what, just I'll go get another tank. So
My my dog is so afraid of the freaking my daughter brought home a balloon one day. He thinks it's like a hawk or something. Like he's afraid of it so bad. So we went outside yesterday, and there was actually a red-tailed hawk, and he wouldn't go outside for like hours. You got a mini Aussie, right?
I do. Chica. She's actually
Chica,
just running an next room over.
that
This is
dog,
funny.
man.
They use it to lift the old guy. Yeah, in the movie Up. And I
Yeah.
swear to you, I worked with an instructor that looked just like him.
Oh, really? Your dog stole the show at the symposium 2 years ago.
She's amazing. She's been to
Stole it.
more states than most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect it to work. I'm just like curious and nerdy and want to just see what happens with it, you know. So I don't recommend doing it. I'm just curious.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'd be afraid. I mean, like, is it flammable helium?
No, I don't think so. No,
Oh, cool.
there's no flammability on it. So,
Nice.
don't be afraid of going in a commercial. Like at some point, people were afraid of getting into residential, and just we did it long enough. It's just natural. Try different things out. Try it.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, as a resi guy, if you're doing residential now, the one benefit if you struggle with the whole homeowner relationship, you know, commercial side, you know, you get to spend a little bit more time up on the roof. So it's positive negatives with everything, you know?
I like everything has a good and a bad. So
Yeah.
I love the restaurant refrigeration side and supermarket refrigeration side because of all of the controls and all of the technology that goes into it. So that's what I think is awesome about it. But I hated working in restaurants because everything was covered in grease and there's people walking by you like 1,000 miles a minute and everybody is angry and you have hot stuff being dripped or poured right next to you and like and
that was me today,
so
bro.
Stressful. Like it's so
I
stressful.
did restaurant.
But
as soon as I walked in, Ty, I heard this guy should have been here 2 days ago. I swear to God, like, come on, bro. Like, as soon as I walk in, he knew. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all your fault. Or Saturday night, it's it's like 11 o'clock. They're calling you because the beer's not cold enough, and I get it. Like they need that's how they make their money. But I'm like, I'm coming out here on a Saturday night because your beer's not cold enough. So, but I love the technology. But now that I've gotten into the building science side, I found out that residential on the building science is so much more exciting because there's so many details in a wall and there's like multiple ways of solving a problem. And if you do it this way, but you don't take into account this, you have another, like I love it. So
it's really cool, man. I can't wait for you to jump into that. You do have a question here by Joey.
I do. I'm going to keep getting distracted. Let's cryogenics actually use it, and they might use it in cryogenics. I think they use cascade systems with two different ones.
That's what he meant.
Where they use helium is MRI machines, and because MRI machines have been used everywhere, they're used more helium now, and that's why helium costs so much nowadays because it used to just be abundant. And even though helium is abundant in the universe, it's fairly rare on Earth. And there's actually reserves of helium that they have in the Earth where they hold helium. So it's actually MRI machines.
Dude, you're blowing my mind right now. Blowing my mind. Yeah, I didn't even know that's what he meant with that question. Cryogen. That's where we have all the heads frozen. When we have the technology ready to bring them back. Yeah, Walt Disney.
Right, here's a good question. A compressor that won't pump down. One of my techs had a call today, and I couldn't explain it.
Was it scroll or rotary?
Since we're talking about scroll, I'm just going to assume that it's a scroll. Okay. So we're just going to go with that. So I don't know for sure, but since if a reciprocating compressor, you got pistons and you got valves, you have things that can break. So it's pretty easy to see how you lose capacity. Yep. But with a scroll, it's a little different because, you just have these two scroll pieces here. What typically happens most of the time is at some point in time, the compressor overheated. There was a leak. It ran low on charge, high compression ratio, overheated, could have burned up the oil, but a lot of times it will burn up. Oops, I don't have that camera on. The floating seal here. And this floating seal keeps this pushed down on the scroll set to make capacity. So it has it. So both of these are touching this piece at the very base is touching the tips here. And then the tips here touching the base here. So this tip is touching way up in the center. And then this tip here is touching down here at the bottom. So it makes a seal, and the oil makes the seal across here. But if this floating seal gets overheated and it can't make the pressure to push this down, then it allows it to float. And that allows the high pressure to bleed across the very top. And then you're pumping some, but you're not pumping like you should. And then also there's this little offset. This one has copper plating. There's this little offset piece. Whoops, right here. And then there's a bushing, and this one has copper plating on it really bad, that goes here.
Yeah, that copper is impressive, man.
So this piece right here, there's a piece of Swedish spring that keeps pressure there. And if you lose oil, you can actually bust that Swedish spring, and then it allows for this piece to actually move back and forth. And normally it keeps it pushed in one direction, but it will allow it to move back and forth. So yes, a scroll can have a loss of capacity and even get so bad where it won't pump down. And when I say pump down, I'm talking about the majority of the refrigerant will pump into the condenser.
Right.
This floating seal is also made to open on residential at a compression ratio of higher than 10 to 1, or maybe it's 11 to 1. It's a very high compression ratio.
So it's compression ratio determines that. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So when you start putting all your high pressure in the condenser and your suction pressure is dropping, you get to about 40 psi or so. The pressure difference is so great, and there's not enough volume in here to keep the floating seal pushed down. So the floating seal releases, and then it allows it just about. So it goes. You hear this clack. You hear that noise right there, and it starts clanking, and you now don't have oil return because there's no oil because there's no refrigerant. So you're running without oil on top of that, and then it starts making it so it releases.
Good galling.
Your check valve holds the high pressure, but still, your suction pressure kind of goes back up some. So that's why you can't pump a scroll down completely.
Yeah. So what about this? So what about not pumping down the scroll and just recovering instead?
So I like to do a pump if my filter dryer is not in a condenser. I like to pump. Like if it's in the condenser, you're going to have to recover it all. So if I know that the refrigerant's not contaminated and I know that there's no acid in there, I'll pump the majority of it down because it's just really fast to recover that last little bit that's in there. That vapor is just really quick to recover. So then I can change a dryer, change a TXV. It's fast. Pull a vacuum just on the equipment side. And if I'm pulling a vacuum through the compressor, it takes longer because the oil. I'm having to pull all of not only the moisture out, but also the refrigerant out. So my vacuum is going to take a lot. Everything's now taking a lot longer. But if I don't know who's been working in that system, and I think that there's acid or contamination, or maybe they have air in there, or maybe they put another refrigerant in there. If there's any concern whatsoever, then I keep a separate recovery bottle that's clean, and I put all the refrigerant in there, and I want to weigh it. I want to know how much is in there. I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to use a temperature and pressure chart. And I want to, once I get done doing everything else, I want to check to see how close it is to the temperature pressure chart. If it's close, okay, I'll run it through a filter dryer and put it back into the system and save the customer some money. But if I'm concerned about it in any way, I'd rather just bite the bullet and put in new refrigerant. personally.
New refrigerant,
But
yeah.
but we're talking residential, so we're only talking like 8
Right.
pounds or so. If it's a
Yeah.
commercial job, right, you're talking about
Yeah.
you're going to be reusing it. But you can have a lot more contamination in a commercial job because you have a lot more refrigerant. So if you have this much contamination on this unit, it's detrimental. This much contamination on a big commercial system,
Right.
like it's okay. Like we can handle that.
And 3-4 years ago, I was able to take a whole charge out, put fresh refrigerant in. Now you can't, man. The price is just a little too pricey for me.
And also, there's an internal pressure relief in here as well. So not only the floating seal, but there's also, let's see. Oh, it's going to be on the muffler plate.
Oh, it's on that
So
part.
this
Okay.
is the muffler plate. This is a separate safety. So this piece right here, can you see it? Can you see it in the camera?
I'm going to
Is that
blow
little
my
copper
screen
piece?
up.
Let me make mine bigger.
Oh,
I'm
there we
steal
go.
from you for a moment. Oops, wrong button. Wrong button again. Still wrong button. There we go.
Perfect.
See that little copper piece?
Yeah.
I'll try to put my finger next to it. Right. I'm going to slowly move it.
Twist it. Yeah. Yep.
So that
There it
is a
is.
check
Okay.
valve. And it's between the top piece, which is all high pressure, and the bottom piece, it's low pressure. So if we get too much pressure here, this opens and it sounds like water spring.
It's that
very high.
Yeah.
And so what it's doing is it dumps high pressure into the low pressure side. So if I get too much pressure here, it will dump to the low side. If my compression ratio gets too high, it will open the floating seal. And now some of the new ones, I don't think I have it in any of these, but they actually use a thermal disc in here. So if this thermal disc gets too hot, it has a bypass tube. All of these are too old, but it has a bypass tube. And so the thermal disc is like a snap disc, and it pops, and it allows the high pressure, just like this is doing.
That's crazy.
But it
Kinda
allows
like
the high pressure
Goodman heat sequencers
to drop right over here. And so the high pressure, the hot gas is dumping on top of this internal thermal overload.
That's genius.
So then it not only dumps the hot gas to the suction side, it makes it to where the compressor shuts off.
Right. It'll just shut that overload. That's
and I've had people say, "Oh, well, Ty, I had to put a start kit on there because it was hot and overheating." I'm like, "Well, find out why it was overheating. That's compression ratio. Like somewhere, too much refrigerant. We got a restriction somewhere. Like something's going on."
Yeah.
But it's dumping
Drier
it on
vents. If you put them really close to the condenser, it helps with that. I love that. It's my
I need
favorite.
to find out who allowed that to happen by code and slap them.
I asked Rick Sims, I was like, can we lobby the FRACA union to make it like, you're failing a new construction house? And he's like, well, you'd have to lobby for it. I was like, lobby for it? I'm like, excuse me? I'm just trying to save units, dude.
That's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to save units. Let's
I don't want to pay anybody money.
The hot dryer vent right onto the air conditioner trying to reject heat. Like it's simple thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Yes, the electromagnets of an MRI are massive. And so those magnets, it's an inductive magnet. It's an inductive load. It's this running without the magnet inside. It's a magnetic field. And what happens if you take any coil, you take a solenoid coil and you pull it off without any metal inside, it will overheat. So if you dip that into a refrigerant like helium, it keeps that magnet cool. All right.
Dude, I got an MRI a couple years ago on my back, and the nurse like grabbed the lanyard and put it close to it. It was like, woo! It was so cool.
And now they have CAT scans, they got PET scans, they got like all kinds of cool things they do.
Yeah, yeah. So did they use helium to cool it, or is it just like refrigeration?
I haven't. My hospital nearby, they won't let me go look at it, so I don't know. So I don't know.
Do they know who you are? I mean, come on now. Damn it, man.
I don't know if it is a full refrigeration cycle or if it's just like literally soaked in. I would imagine it has to be some kind of refrigeration cycle because there's a lot of heat. I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, you're right. It's a full magnet. You're right. It's got to be cooled.
Giant electromagnet. Yeah.
Because think about it. There's no airflow. It's not like an evaporator, type deal.
The heat has to go somewhere. Where does
Yeah,
it go?
it's gotta be a full loop.
I apologize. We missed your question. I don't know where it is, but if you want to
Yeah,
ask
I
it again,
tried to
we'll
look.
look for
I
it.
couldn't find it.
You guys are
I
on
tried,
point.
Tank. I tried, Tank. The chat's been going crazy.
Graduated from college and have a degree in HVACR, and it's my second year after graduation. I'm just working as a maintenance residential technician.
Yeah.
Keep at it, right? So,
Yeah.
and I never say just a, because maintenance, somebody's changing filters, that is an extremely important job. Like it is,
Yeah.
and filters are very important. The idea is you're still learning, keep up with stuff. You're here learning. Like Wednesday, you could be doing anything else, but here you are in a show, listening to a couple of guys talk about air conditioning refrigeration. So stay at it, and eventually you'll keep looking for that right job. And sooner or later, that's going to open up. The door's going to open up. I
Yep.
know people all over the country that were in the same spot, aggravated, kind of frustrated, or maybe they ended up at a sales company that all they wanted to do is sell stuff, and they hang with it, get enough experience in, and then they wait for that right opportunity. And sometimes you got to go look for the opportunity. So go
Yeah.
find the jobs that you want. Like, hey, I want to go work at MRI machines. Start looking
Right.
at that, doing searches for that, looking for jobs that do that, going and finding people. Especially at LinkedIn, if I want to learn about something, I go find people that do that
Yeah,
job,
dude.
and I go send them friend requests and start talking
Get
to them and
plugged into
asking them.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, like
Yeah, man.
it's the professional Facebook, but it's still kind of awkward. But yeah, LinkedIn's a great place to get
It's still
connected.
kind of awkward. But yeah, there's so much in our field, man. I mean, it's like if we were electricians, we got residential, commercial, industrial electricians. You know, I mean, granted, you could do some lighting for residential, but my goodness, dude, if you pick a trade, HVAC is so vast. You could be doing residential building science. You could do, just like you said earlier, restaurants. You could master restaurant. You could do
Hockey
large
rinks.
commercial. Yeah, oh, dude.
Supermarket refrigeration, transport refrigeration.
I'm going to be
transport
Googling
trucks.
that all night tonight now.
There's a friend
Zambonis.
of mine. He works on buses. He specializes in air conditioners
Yeah.
for buses because they have some major airflow issues. There's like everything you can imagine. We have 8 billion people in this world. It's only possible because of transportation and refrigeration.
I was just talking about this in I forgot what group I was talking to, but my buddy's HVAC company got the account for submarines off my area. I was like,
That's
"What are you doing submarines? What?" He's like, "Yeah, they spec'd out a HVAC unit for the sub. It was small, and dude, I mean, you could do it's so wild. It's a wild trade.
I've done HVAC work in a lot of boats, on ferries and also
Boats.
sailboats to commercial boats. So yeah, it's small areas. A condenser fan motor going out will absolutely cause high compression ratio, but usually what it does before the compression ratio, it will cause this to trip first. So your high pressure relief valve, so it'll dump high pressure in the low side because your high pressure builds up. What causes your compression ratio to build up more so than your high side, way faster than your high side, is a low pressure. So your suction pressure dropping has a bigger difference on compression ratio than your high side. Your high side is going to affect this first, your internal pressure relief valve. Little fun fact there.
I still gotta dig into compression ratio.
Yes, do not try to pump down a microchannel, because microchannels are small channels, which is great for heat transfer. Excellent for heat transfer, but the problem is they're microchannels. There's more refrigerant touching more of the tubing. So thermodynamics is great, but now you try to push liquid in there, there's no place for the liquid to go. So either you're going to end up blowing out the microchannel, or you're going to be tripping your internal pressure relief valve, or something's going to give, but it's not going to be good. The very first models of microchannel that came out actually had liquid receivers on them, and now they don't do that anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wish they did, man. I mean, those chargers are they're so small, which is cool, but I don't know. I feel like one of these days I'm going to forget it's a microchannel, pump it down by accident, and like, oh, you know, I mean, yep.
So I see this a lot. People taking pistons out or putting a piston in, it's too big. First off, I love TXVs. Like, let's do away with pistons anyways. But I see this a lot, and what'll happen is they're thinking in their mind they get more liquid refrigerant to the evaporator coil that make cooling better. What it does is flood the evaporator coil, raises the suction pressure, less dehumidification, and you end up flooding back to your compressor. So a lot of times people will go and fix it. They'll fix they'll put either the proper piston in or the proper TXV, but the damage has already been done to the compressor. They've had so
Right.
much flood back in there that it's tried to work that liquid for and that flood back also washes the oil away from those moving parts in there, and so you just end up with extra wear, and it's just done at that point.
I hate pistons so much. I went on a little bit of a campaign, but I had this Goodman, and it was really easy to put an aftermarket TXV on there. It was all external. You know, it goes right on, the outside of the air handler. But it was adjustable. It was kind of, it was a little tough to dial it in, Can't imagine doing that in the 80s. Golly. Wireless probes, man. I love them.
Oh man, me too. Like I
Dude,
fought it forever, and now I'm like, why did I fight this for? So this is the best thing since sliced bread.
It's so accurate. I mean, dude, my old set right here. My high side. Oh wow, I was looking at the screen. I'm doing a U. I'm like, my high side is accurate when it goes up to 200. It's off by 10%. When it's up by 300, it's off by 10%. So right around 100 to 200, no problem. That was a big one for me.
And you talk about, like, if you take the back off of there, look at all the fine moving parts inside, the little fine springs.
Yeah.
Take it apart. It's like a watch inside of there. And people are like, oh, they're stronger. I'm like, no, they're more sensitive. They're way more sensitive. There's more
sensitive
fine
stuff.
parts.
Yeah. And then usually this is all cracked here,
Yeah, of course. Remember when the very first we had the glycerin filled, and man, you was the cool guy if you had glycerin filled, and I saved up and I got the glycerin filled, and I hated it because it leaked. You had glycerin everywhere. It made a mess.
Yeah.
We're getting off track. So when you're doing a pump down, so what's happening is that the compression ratio gets too high. That's where you get those noises. So when you hear those noises, pull the disconnect. It should hold. Like, don't let it be there making those noises while you close the suction side. No, pull the disconnect. Whoops. I'm off screen again. This check valve is going to hold all the high pressure for you. Your suction is going to go up some just because of what's in that scroll set, but pull the disconnect and then, recover that last little bit. So don't sit there with it making all those horrible noises while you're closing.
Right.
The pet peeve of mine, like, oh, it's clack, 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 and they're shutting that suction valve. No, shut it off.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, so let's say a scenario, you're changing the evaporator coil, right? You're doing an evap coil. What do you think about it? Is it a little too extreme? Have your recovery tank. Let the compressor do a lot of the liquid, and then recover the remaining. So you don't have to do a pump down on the compressor. Is that just babying the compressor too much, you think?
No, I think that's legitimate. I think that's...
Yeah? Okay.
I think,
hopefully I can get a lighter recovery machine, but...
So I have been using the Navac recovery machine. I've had the Tez 8 forever. Like, it's been a great one.
Yeah.
And I've been using and abusing the Navac. I've been going on all the scrap pile pumping stuff. I've let some people borrow it, and it's pretty cool. Like, it's the simple one. It's the basic cheap model because I'm cheap, and it has the gauges on it, and there's no digital stuff. It's like, It doesn't have microchannel. It's got the tubes. That's the one I wanted. I'm loving it so far. I'm still doing some tests on it. But so far, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Last question before you go, amp draw. Yes, amp draw is useful if you know how to use it. That rating plate that's on the unit, it's pretty well worthless. If you want to know, you have to go to the Copeland mobile app, scan your compressor, there's two options. You can go to performance and dynamic performance. You enter in the suction pressure, the head pressure, the superheat, the subcooling. You enter in everything, and it will tell you under those specific conditions, this is exactly what your amp should be. You can also go under diagnostics or troubleshooting, either diagnostics or troubleshooting, one of those two, where you just enter in your pressure difference, you enter in your voltage, and it accounts for your voltage difference, and it tells you what your amp should be with that voltage under those specific conditions. So
Okay.
under those conditions, if your amps are too high or too low, way out of range, under those conditions, then you have something else going on. Now it's time to ohm out the terminals on that compressor. And the Copeland mobile app under electrical tells you what the resistance value is between run the common and start the common. So once you
that's
ohm it
beautiful.
out, you can tell if you have a problem with your windings or not.
That's
So
nice.
yes, amps is good, but compare that little tag, that tag's pretty well worthless.
Yeah. Now I see a lot of LG compressors coming up. Does it have any information? No, right?
Next topic, Bob.
Right, dude. They rust in like 2 years too, man. Right on the top of the dome, bro. Come on.
So R22 compressor, R22 evaporators and for today. Say this a lot. R22 wasn't designed to handle the higher pressures of R4 today. I've heard people that ran for today on a 22 compressor without any trouble at all. I've had other
Really?
people that had nothing but
Wow.
leaks, and come to find out they were using an R22 coil and they were having leaks. So, like, should you do it? Simple answer is no. Can some people get away with it? Yes. Why? I have no idea. Like, it shouldn't hold it, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? Even with the 410A coil, you get leaks. So, like,
Yeah.
you know, and that depends on the house too. A lot of these houses have full of chemicals, and those chemicals react with that evaporator coil. Even what, like the grass, talking about chemistry, the microbes from the grass from your feet get sucked into the air on your evaporator coil and causes the slime in Florida. Like,
Dude, that was a crazy pod. That was a crazy show, man.
that was my favorite show I think I've ever watched.
Slimeonomics, man. That was wild, dude. And then Mike Barnes is always hitting me up on Facebook saying, you know, I'm talking about this or that. And he's like, environmental. He's like a little bird. He's like, environmental.
Yep.
Well, I'm like, what do you mean environmental? I'm in the house. But
Something
but yeah,
chemistry.
she's got
Yep.
7 cats and she's got a litter
now
box
you have
right next to the return.
ammonia. Yeah. Now
Right?
you got ammonia going
Okay.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
We're gonna have to do a separate show just on raw devices because those things are cool. Nobody knows about them.
Amazing.
So yeah, those are super awesome.
I saw that little star go across the screen. The more you know.
And condensing. You know how many times I've had people tell me, "Oh no, everything's good." I said, "Send me a picture of the condenser and send me a picture of what it looks like above the fan." And the condensers are dirty. I'm like, "Well, I washed it." Okay, it's still dirty. So like, if I
Yeah.
put water in my car, does it make it clean? Like, it's still dirty. And then also, a lot of
heat
those you have
pump,
to split them. You have
right?
to take
Yeah, the heat pump
especially
coils.
commercial, take it apart, split those open to get, especially if there's a cottonwood
Yeah.
tree within like a 10-mile radius, it clogs it between those. So yeah, just because you put water on it doesn't mean you cleaned it. So
Yeah.
and you got to watch the cleaners you use. A lot of these caustic cleaners will damage, especially Microchannel. I see people using that old blue cleaner that was bad
Ooh.
for our bodies on that Microchannel, and then they have leaks, and you can see the stains. Even if it's not leaking, you can see the stains, which is a great plug for. And we're not sponsored by anybody, but
Nobody.
Refrigeration Technologies, Viper. John Pastorella,
Pastorello, yeah.
he is I ask him questions constantly about chemistry, about this, about that. And I don't just ask one person, I ask a lot of people. But John, it could be on a Sunday night at midnight, and John's like, "Well, Ty, here's the answer, da da da." And actually, and like, he takes
Yeah.
the time to answer questions that he didn't have to answer. But I love it because it's a family-owned business
Yeah,
that's
it's
making
cool.
like how often do you see that? And he cares about the safety, like the people, the environment, like where that chemical goes. So I don't get nothing if you buy Viper. I love it because it's a family-owned, good product. It's good people. You know, I don't care what you use, but I'm telling you, I use and love their products. So no sponsorship. We're not supported by them in any way. I haven't even got anything free from them. Like, I bought, like, even this, which is super cool. Like, I bought it.
Oh, dude,
right?
I want to get that,
Right?
man.
So they haven't given me.
Is it as good as you?
They gave me a T-shirt.
All
This is
right.
awesome. This is awesome.
Is it really good?
Like, look, the logo will burn, so I will tell you that. But look how burnt it is. Like, I've been using the hell out of it.
Is that your little pair of pants?
It's my shorts.
This is my old baby
said that
pants.
I need to be on YouTube Shorts, so this would be
YouTube Shorts, right there. It is.
Viper
I'm gonna
YouTube
make a short out of that.
Oh my
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's amazing. Like getting like for a TXV would be really nice. I wanted to get one of those, especially guys that live around pine trees. Got to get that thing, man. Yeah.
Okay, we got a guest in.
Oh,
Special guest.
there she is.
This is Chica. She's been from coast to coast.
Helium.
And, see, there goes. See, that's the Helium. What I tell you. Say hi, Chica.
That dog stole the show at the symposium in Orlando, man.
She is the baby. She's
Yeah.
anything she wants. She's the most spoiled dog ever.
Super smart, right?
Oh yeah, she
Super
herds the
smart.
goat. She herds deer.
So funny.
She makes friends with just about everybody. Yeah, she's awesome.
I finally broke down. The kids wanted a dog. I got myself a little mutt.
So I yes and no on this about the hunting TXV, because when I see a TXV hunting, I'm not looking for suction pressure go up and down. I'm looking for my superheat to go up and down, and I can still see that faster on a digital gauge set. And usually, if you got a hunting TXV, it's usually because it's oversized. So I mean, most of the time. How far behind are we? It's already 8:30. What are common problems with the scroll compressor? Voltage, compression ratio and overheat, floodback causing bearing damage, flooded starts from refrigerant migration, and there's a fifth one. Electrical. Did I say electrical yet?
Yeah.
Low voltage coming in.
Yeah, voltage.
Low voltage coming in. So something like a low voltage coming in, or a bad run capacitor trying to run, or a start kit takes them out. So you got electrical, flooded starts, flood back, compressor overheat. Oh, contamination. Contamination such as additives, acids, moisture, copper plating, solder balls of solder, actually flux. People are like, oh, name brand 8, and they're like all about it.
Right.
I'm not against it, but it uses flux, and flux is an acid, and it can flux the system up. So when they don't do it right, it gets into the system. And those same people that say they never have a problem, that soft solder ends up to balls inside of there, and it ends up in the compressors, and it ends up in TXVs, filter dryers, solenoid valves. You know how many times I've taken apart TXVs and solenoid valves and find soft solder balls in there from the people who say, oh, I've never had a problem with it. Well, I've had a problem with you doing it. So, and it can be done right. Typically not, but it can be done right.
Yeah, I never use it. I never seen guys in the field in my area. You know, we always used 5%, and I like using 15% on the compressor high side.
Yes, 15%, and then also if you overheat this is steel with a copper coating on it. So if you get this too hot, some people like everything to be bright red. If you get this too hot, you will literally cook the copper off of this, and then nothing's going to stick to it unless you use a special I forget the number of it.
Oh yeah, it's a special Harris. Yeah.
Yes, but it's made to go from copper to steel, and then you have to use that one.
Just new
but
compressor.
if you don't overheat this, it's not an issue. But if you and I've done it, right? I cooked the copper off, and then it was like, hey, you have to use a special rod, you have to use flux, you have to use all this stuff. But it's like the orange rods. There's two brands. There's Harris, and then there's the other one. That makes it.
The orange one. Yeah.
And then there was. This I won't say anything. Oh, a highlighted one. Thank you. But I've learned so much tonight. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you, man. Why we'll do a whole episode on those devices. We'll bring Jason Johnson in and do an episode with him. He uses them all the time.
Raw wall. Is that Texan?
It's Texan draw.
Raw wall.
We're gonna have to do a special show just on those devices.
That's
so
about,
dehumidifiers.
I'm all residential, so you'd have to. Yeah, I'm no help here.
So I think that I think we're gonna end up with either more dehumidifiers or electric reheat.
Absolutely.
And I used to be like pro reheat really heavily, but Tim DeSanto, did I say his name right?
You still are, Ty, because you know why?
Why?
Because a dehumidifier is technically reheat.
That's true. It's taking latent heat and putting it in a sensible heat. That's true.
The compressor, all
Yep.
the heat from the compressor
That's
is
true.
going back into the house. So it's a reheat option.
That is true.
So if you're put in a corner and they go, hey, do you like reheat or do you like dehumidifiers?
I
love
do.
them both.
I like both. So
and
Tim,
why not both? So
Yeah.
but
right
yeah,
place and
man.
time.
Tim, latent will not go away when we build better homes here. The latent is still around. People are still going to be breathing. So
you're breathing. You're still gonna have latent issues. Yep.
yeah,
And
showers
Tim
are still going to be a
DeSanto.
thing. Hopefully, yeah. Pistachio, he's the
Pistachio,
man.
yeah. He's doing like actual testing on things,
Dude,
and he's finding
killing
out.
it.
He has the numbers to show that an actual
Reheat.
dehumidifier, like a Santa Fe dehumidifier, was actually using less energy. I think it's like $100 less in the month that he tested it. So I knew
it's still going on. It's running.
it's still going on. He's not,
dude.
it's not
He's
finished,
doing what I wanted to do.
yeah. It's like, and what I love about him is like we'll disagree about something and like we'll like argue about it, and then like we're still okay to talk about everything else because like we're professionals, what we do. And I love to be able to disagree
guys are
with
adults.
somebody and still be able to get along. He's not out like name calling me, and like, and we know that there's people in the industry that do just that. But I like him a lot, and I like how he's grown in the last 3 years.
His
When
content's
he first
great,
came on the scene. It's done like I wish I would have kept some of the things. I'm like, who is this guy? Like that's wrong. And then now he's learning and growing and adapting it. And really
he's like Kevin Hart. He came out of nowhere and now he's in every movie. But not the Canadian. They're the different Kevin Hart.
You can have enough of a leak that you can have to put refrigerant oil back in. I've seen leaks on the very bottom of a condensing coil.
It's a good question.
That when it leaked out, where the oil's sitting, and it actually caused there to lose enough refrigerant oil. Usually, it's not, but it can happen.
That's a darn good question.
Oh, there's some great questions. I can't get to everybody.
Yeah, because in the early 2000s, we were doing like 3 coils in 4 years, and who knows how much oil you're taking out. Oh, yeah.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
That's it.
Let's see. What is this one? I thought you weren't technically allowed to use any additional energy consumption devices for reheat. That's why they use DX coils. So it depends on like who's funding whatever project. So
politics.
Like reheat coils, when you design a system for reheat, like Munter's systems, like I've had really good luck with those systems, and they're done really well. But some manufacturers like just did it as it's like, oh, let's just throw a coil in there, and it kind of like, and in my opinion, the manufacturer didn't spend enough money on engineering of that, and there's been some issues. But I'm a big fan of DX reheat coils. I mean, really, you're instead of taking heat and dumping it outside, you're just dehumidifying, but you're still reheating. Let's be honest, you're still putting heat back in. But yeah, I like those reheat coils, and that may end up eventually being in residential too. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Yep.
Okay, there's one about Subco 88, and I'm going to skip over that one because I'm trying not to tick off every manufacturer tonight.
I'm sorry, man.
I do like Munter's coils. I have a friend of mine who used to work for Munter's, and it's oh, look who we have it. We got the Mechanical Environments. These guys, right? Awesome. I love the content of the patent on TikTok, and they've been hammered by some people. Like some of the TikTok everything can be brutal, but they've been holding their own, doing good, asking questions. They've asked me some questions before, and I'm like, I love it when people ask questions. I want to learn. So glad to have you guys here tonight. So I think we're just about cut up here. Oh, there we go. Here's a long one. It's got to be good.
Yeah, we had them on the show
for training when they questions. It really helps me motivate them to answer questions, even if they're wrong. I call it the Ty 5. And we need to promote people. I hate it when someone says, that's a stupid question. It's not. Like, some of the questions may be like, it's our perception. It's a good question as long as it's being asked for the right reasons. Like in the HVAC school, one of the things that I hate, like I will block people quick when they start attacking people for asking a question, because we need people to be able to have a safe place. I remember working for people and asking a question, and they make you feel like this big for asking a question. So
Yeah.
I've made sure I keep myself surrounded by people that will answer questions. Steven Rogers, he is a brilliant man, and I can contact him. John Pastorello, like, he didn't have time for me. I'm just a tech, and he always spends time to answer my questions. I mean, there's a whole long list of people that will answer questions, and I actually put together like Craig Michalaccio. He's my best friend. Like, he is always there for me. Anything that I need, I'm like, hey, look, I got a question.
Craig is awesome. I was using his book today, man.
Oh, I use this book all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, look in the very front pages of the heat pump book that he did, the mini split book he did.
In the first page of my book, it says, Mike, you're an awesome dude.
Nice.
No, I'm joking.
Well, you are.
He put something in there. It was awesome, dude. I got a book at the symposium. He's awesome. See, he talks with his hands too, you know?
I can't talk it up my hands. So there's a name brand that keeps coming up, and I won't use their name brand. And I thought I brought it in here, but it's called a Megger, and it says good, caution, bad. And they hook it up to a terminal and then hook it up to ground, and it says bad, even though the compressor's still running. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to replace it. It's a sales tool, and that is a pet peeve. I'm working on a video right now for that.
Oh, you don't like the Megger?
No.
Okay.
No. Hate it. It's a trigger.
I was listening to Brian Orr's podcast. He was saying, like, it induces voltage, and don't do that.
So,
it stresses the windings out, right?
You have to have the right amount of voltage for that specific windings. But here's the thing. If you look at Copeland mobile app, just search Copeland and megometers, and the AE bulletin will pop up. Like, it will literally pull the AE bulletin. And it tells you that a compressor should never be condemned because of a Megger. It should be used over time. And a Copeland scroll can be good to 0.5 megohms, 0.5 megohms, and still be good. Where that little, like, Fisher Price thing will say it's bad at 20. It's saying it's bad at 20 when the compressor can still be good at 0.5. And here's the other thing it leaves out, is you can have moisture or contamination or acid or copper plating or anything else floating around in the system,
right?
And it will give you a false reading because
okay. Yeah.
Remember we talked about this plug?
Yeah.
Well, anything floating around in that refrigerant can make electricity travel from one point to the other, and it's going to give you a bad little light in there. Right. And then there's people out there selling compressors that are perfectly good because they don't want to get their white shirt dirty, and they press a little button. Oh, see, the light says that it's bad, and then they're condemning perfectly good compressors. Hey, if it's first off, use a good one that actually gives you a number. But if you're getting close to 0.5, how about we do an acid test? How about we do a moisture test? How about we find out what's going on inside and solve that problem instead of selling people? And here's the other thing: people will take and hook it up wrong, hook it up between two terminals, so that it will say bad, even if that Fisher Price is saying good. They'll change the terminals to say it's bad, and then go to the customer. My Fisher Price toy says that it's bad because, see, the red light says it's bad. You need new unit. We have financing. Buy from me.
Financing. Yep.
My boss will get me in trouble. We have a board with everybody's name. I got to get my name up here in the board so that I can pay my bill. So you need to buy a new unit so I can pay my. Anyways,
it's bad. It's bad out there, man. That's why it's so hard. It's hard for us to go into a house, man. I mean, one of those guys got me an easy, a soft start sale that was like no problem. Is it? You know, the guy from the company said it was really close to, or like 1 amp over lock rotor. I was like, oh, okay, all right. Oh,
and see, locked rotor isn't even a number anyways. Like, we can't change that. It's an inductive heater. It's like an inductive stove when it first starts up. Every compressor pulls locked rotor when it first starts up. Every single one. And
Yeah.
if there's a problem with the resistance in the winding, the only way you're going to find it is ohming out those terminals and using the Copeland mobile app to find out what it should be and what you're actually getting.
Okay.
But it pulls locked rotor every time it starts up. So if you think that there's a problem, then take the plug out and actually use your ohm meter, not a megometer, an ohm meter, and check it with the factory what it should be, see what the percentage allowance are, and that's how you know. You don't checking startup amps does nothing for diagnosing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Nothing.
And
people put a start kit in and like, oh look, it dropped the amps.
I put in a soft start for him, and I was like, yeah, it's working great.
You got me. A soft start will reduce inrush current. Okay, so you win. You got me.
Well, he sold it. The white shirt guy sold it for me. I was like,
oh, there you go. A soft start's cool because it also monitors voltage. It also monitors brownouts. It also monitors. So like,
high voltage.
I'm okay with that one. But this does not. It does not reduce inrush current. It only reduces the time so that your meter doesn't read it.
Yeah, I stopped putting those in. I got like 1 or 2 on a truck still. I don't offer them unless I need. I call it my CPR kit. You know, clear.
Ding. Yes,
that's my CPR.
Absolutely. If it won't start with the start kit, then you have so much copper plating it's locked up.
What do you think, Ty? Like compressors locking up 6 months?
Well, is it copper plating, or is it the windings that's an issue, or is it floodback? You know, and once we get it running, we can see if floodback's an issue. We could do an acid test to see if copper plating's an issue, or we can actually ohm out the windings and see if it's a winding issue. So like if it's copper plating, we can clean up the acid and it'll last a long time. If it's bearings or a winding issue, we're limited now. And yes, liquid refrigerant will also cause low megohm readings. Yes, absolutely right.
Oh yeah.
How can we get more adiabatic subcooling without adding charge? Subcooler. Here's one thing people don't realize is we take our liquid line.
Let's start off with adiabatic. What's that one?
I'm sorry. So adiabatic's where you change state from a liquid to a vapor. And in the evaporator coil, refrigerant's changing state, which is latent heat. It's not adiabatic yet, but it's changing state and it's boiling. So as the refrigerant's boiling in the evaporator coil, it's boiling, but it's absorbing heat as it boils. Just like when you have a pot on the stove. And it's at 212 degrees to us and our feelings, that's hot. But according to science, it's keeping it at a cool 212 because no matter how much heat you put a blowtorch on there, it's going to stay at 212 at sea level. And then it won't go up until all that water's gone. Then it will go up. Then your ramen noodles will burn up. So in an evaporator coil, the refrigerant's boiling, but it's keeping it at a cool temperature, say, depending on your pressures and airflow, 40 degrees.
Right.
Now, let's back up. If we think we have liquid refrigerant coming to that metering device, and that liquid refrigerant, say, I don't know, let's say that it's 100 degrees outside. At best, we could get it to 100 degrees, our liquid refrigerant. We can only get our liquid refrigerant temperature to whatever the outdoor air temperature is. Usually it's going to be a little bit higher. So if my liquid refrigerant's coming in at 100 degrees into the metering device, on the other side of the metering device, now it's instantly dropped to 40. And it's not just science. It's like not magic. It's science. So what we do is we sacrifice some of that liquid refrigerant, and it boom flashes instantaneously, immediately changes state from a liquid to a vapor. Just bam, immediately. And what it does is, as some of that liquid refrigerant flashes, adiabatic expansion, it expands, it changes state from liquid to vapor. It absorbs the heat from itself. So it drops the rest of the liquid down to that saturated temperature, which is, say, I hate using this number because it's not a set number, but 40 degrees. So we sacrifice some of that liquid refrigerant at 100 degrees to drop the rest of the liquid refrigerant down to that saturated temperature of, say, 40. Now, the hotter that liquid line is, the more of that refrigerant we have to sacrifice, and then we have less liquid refrigerant to absorb heat in the evaporator coil. So if my liquid line comes in cooler, let's say my liquid line came in at, say, 60 degrees, and then I had to have enough refrigerant flashing adiabatic expansion to drop it down to 40. Well, that's using a lot less liquid refrigerant to flash. So now, because I dropped the temperature of the liquid line, I sacrificed less of my liquid refrigerant, and I have more refrigerant to absorb heat in the evaporator coil.
So
So,
wrap the liquid with the suction?
well, so if we cool the liquid, that's great. And there's been people that's used the drain water to cool the liquid line,
Oh,
but
that's a
that causes the
crazy
copper.
idea.
It
Yeah,
is crazy, but it
corrode.
causes the copper to corrode faster, and it causes the
Wow.
drain to build up with slime faster because it's a warmer temperature.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's right. Damn.
in commercial supermarket, we use actual heat exchangers to physically cool the temperature of that liquid line down. It's called subcoolers to
Yeah.
cool that down more. Now, in some cases, we can use the suction gas to pre-cool the liquid refrigerant, but the problem is that it will increase the suction gas temperature.
Yeah. You have
And then it
a hot
increases our
compressor.
superheat.
Yeah.
You have a hot compressor. So
Yeah.
sometimes they do it though. They design it to where that will work. And in cases where you have a very low superheat at the evaporator coil, it benefits the compressor because they need more superheat. So there's a fine balance. That's where you get into engineering. So I pretty much leave it to the engineers to design that. But an engineer will design a supermarket and they will design a subcooler that it needs, or a refrigerator.
They get paid the big bucks.
They will design how that comes in together. So that's how we do it, by dropping the temperature of the liquid line. But if we attach the suction line to the liquid line, there's very little overall gain because we still have capacitive refrigerant moving through the compressor. So we just shift the load a little bit. So it gets kind of like tricky. And it also depends on the oil, the refrigerants, what the refrigerants are made of, the velocity of the refrigerant, the temperatures. Like, it gets crazy.
We're almost at the 2-hour mark, dude.
Oh
Holy
my gosh. I thought, we're going to have to shut it down here in a little bit, guys. I'm surprised I still got my voice. Plate heat exchangers. Yes. Plate heat exchangers make a great.
Yeah.
And here's another cool thing. This is another topic completely off from scrolls, but you can use a low temperature box that you have, and you can use that suction gas coming through to pre-cool another box to cool that liquid refrigerant down. And now you're raising your suction pressure up to a more useful point to where the compressor can actually be more efficient. So when you get to supermarket refrigeration, it's amazing all the things that are involved.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Crazy. All right, so I do want to, yes, that's exactly right. 100% exactly right. I do want to make a little announcement. Last time we were on the show, we had some people that were really awesome. Everybody's awesome, right? You guys showing up, wanting to learn, that's why we're here. You don't have to do anything extra. I love the communication. It makes it much more fun. Some people went above and beyond and made donations, and I'm not asking for any of that. But because of those donations, this morning, I contacted TEC. I had enough money with those donations, put me right over the top. And coming on its way, we shipped out tomorrow, is my True Flow grid.
Nice.
So you guys made it happen. I went to the Train the Trainer course in like 2 years ago. And if you go to the Train the Trainer course at their facility, they give you a discount on the equipment. So with that discount and the generosity of everybody, and you don't need to do that, but I greatly appreciate it. I was able to get the True Flow grid. It was still a lot of money, but I'm so excited. It'll be here soon. We'll make some videos on that soon. So really, really, really excited about that. And thank you all for just watching and wanting to learn. Chris is really awesome. So we'll be doing some videos on that. It'll be super cool. It'll be awesome. And I can't thank you guys enough. Ellie was a great, he donated, I think it's $100, and then somebody else donated $50. I have their name written down. I'm ADHD. I struggle with names.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was so cool.
I mean, some people donated $5. Like, you guys, you don't need to donate. I greatly appreciate it. I just love the fact that you guys are here. You're wanting to learn. You're being supportive. I appreciate all of you because it's a positive.
I've been on a few shows, and you got some really cool. You got some cool viewers, man. They ask a lot of good questions. They come in quick. It's awesome.
So, thank you all just for wanting to learn and being here and supporting me. And like I say, the donations aren't necessarily over the top. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. I can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough for that. And Mike, now let's shift the load a little bit here. So the Grapevine show retired, and that was on every Sunday.
Yeah,
But
every
I've
Sunday.
been thinking about this ever since I read the announcement. And that's when I'm like, hey, let's do a show together. It'd be a lot more fun of two people. But I'm thinking that Grapevine show, I think it should continue on. And you are a great host.
Thanks,
So
bro.
the people in
Appreciate
the
it.
comments, like, it's not my call, but what do you guys think if Mike continued the Grapevine show and just brought in different guests every week? And if nobody shows up, like, I'm always available, but just to keep the
Right?
show going. And if nothing else, he can just read off some of the news and changes that happened or that's coming to the industry. So I think it's a great idea, but I'm just me. So if you guys think that's something that should happen, either go to the Grapevine Facebook group post, or send Mike an email, or send Chris Hughes an email, or Eric Kaiser an email. And I think there's so much really good information that should continue going. And
Thank
of
you,
course,
man. I
I want you to
appreciate
help
that.
me out too when you can. So
We're trying to figure out what to do. We're just still not sure. Eric's so busy at True Tech Tools.
oh,
so,
for sure. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
asking him to do any more. I understand, and I
Yeah.
understand Chris's viewpoint too. But you're
Well,
the
right
upcoming
at the
rock
end of
star,
the
man.
podcast, I didn't know Chris was going to say the same thing. I was like, oh, I caught a deer in the headlights. I was like, wait, both of you now?
And so I get it. Like, when Chris is privileged to a lot more information, like where I'm at now, I have a lot more information than I
Yeah.
ever knew. There's a lot going on behind the scenes of HVAC, and it doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that's happening, but I'm connected to a lot of things, and some of the things that I'm entrusted with, some of the information I'm entrusted with, I can't talk about. So I'm always thinking, okay, I got to be careful
Right.
not to tick off every single manufacturer, and I always have to think, like, not letting this information out, because a lot of it's private, from even not just from my job, but from a lot of people I know in the industry, things that's happening and changing. And so I'm always thinking, I don't want to say that accidentally. So I completely understand Chris's where he's coming from on that.
Yeah.
And people need change from time to time, but I
Yeah.
think it would be cool. And there's look at all the people that said yes, you should do it. So
That's cool. Thank you,
I
man.
think we're gonna have to do a petition for you to continue the HVAC Grapevine show.
I need a little push. That's what I
can
need.
come in there and help out, and then we can still do these. Right? We can
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
random
man.
times,
I'll
but
blast, dude.
2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
this is like the
Yeah,
record
I'm
for me.
I'm like, what time is it?
And people are still here asking questions. Like,
That's
it might
awesome,
be
dude.
ADHD, but there's a mosquito in here. I'm sorry.
Do you think this guy loves the HVAC?
I absolutely love this stuff.
I appreciate that, man.
great.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do, and it's cool, man. And people putting that in the comments, it's neat. It's it's like, for 2 days I was offline. I was like, I'm taking a break myself. I was upset. So
I saw that it happened. I was like, and then I saw the other one, and I'm like, I have to reach out to him.
so upset.
I gotta know, like, let's do it. Let's keep it going. Let's bring him in. And then this was so much more fun than me trying to keep up with the chat. Having
What's
somebody
up,
to talk
JD?
to. JD Kelly, student of HVAC. He's made some really cool artwork
I
for me.
still want to print out his wire diagram and put up my wall, man. It's awesome.
So ESCO Institute is working on making posters, and JD, I've already talked to ESCO to get with you, but I think you have some great poster ideas. I think we can work together on that. So I'm gonna get them to reach out to you, and I think that would be super, super incredible, and get some of that stuff in the classrooms to help more students, because you were a student and you know exactly how those visuals help. So I think you have some of the best stuff. So I'm sure we can work something out on that. So pretty excited about that.
Super clean, super simple.
Yeah.
I was on a service call. I pulled up his Facebook account. I was like, "Where is that janitrol relay?" And he had it, dude.
I use this stuff to show other people, because I will draw some sketching, some chicken scratch horrible stuff, and send it to JD. I'm like, look, here's, in my mind it looks better, but here's what I want to do. And he's like, oh, and they just like waves a magic wand and just makes this really awesome stuff come out. And then I'm able to share that with other people, or stuff that he's done on his own. Like, I share that with people. It's like, hey, use this, it'll help you, because I don't have time to get to every single question out there. And so
exactly.
Us working together like that, it's huge.
Yeah, it's awesome. I blame it all on Brian Orr.
Oh, Brian has really brought the industry together.
I blame it all on him.
I wouldn't be here without Brian. Like, he was like, hey, Ty, you should, make videos. Like, I like what you're doing. You should share that to more people. And then he's like, hey, you should do a podcast with me. And then, so he's so many people he's really brought, from
Yeah.
commercial side, sales side, people side, education side. He's
If
pretty
it
awesome.
wasn't for Brian, I would have never met Chris
Yeah.
Hughes. Yeah,
Me neither.
TC.
Yeah.
And then I would have never been on a show. I don't like going in front of a camera. And Chris called me up one day. He's like, "You want to do a show?" I was like, "I guess." Not really. And then I love it. And he's like, "I don't know, man. I think we'd take a break." I'm like, "Dude, I'm dying here. I gotta go live, man. I gotta stay on the show."
Well, either way, we're gonna keep you on. We're gonna keep you in front, whether we can do it on your own
Thanks, brother.
show or you're gonna keep being here. I
We'll
really,
figure
really
it out.
appreciate you. And man, look, 2 hours. Like,
Dude, I had a freaking blast, man.
it was amazing. It was so fun.
I'm gonna have another blown compressor now because we're talking about compressors so much.
Well,
Do
how
not.
about
I'm not coming on the show if you're having leaky evaporator coil episodes. I'm not doing this. All right, broke my heart, that compressor, man. Flow nitrogen, pull a good vacuum, and then
bam.
Unbelievable.
So, if hopefully you'll be doing your own show Sunday, but if you're not, then we'll do something Sunday. How about that? We'll keep the energy going. All right.
I think I'm gonna keep in chat with you, man. I really want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a rough week or two.
Hope this made it better. Thank you, everybody. Every one of you. Thank you. Thanks, Mike,
guys,
for being here. I appreciate you so much. And everybody, have a great week. Never stop learning and help other people when you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Later, guys.